Hi again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Chuck. My name is Chuck Guglielmo, a weekly interview show where we talk with interesting people. And today we have the new superintendent of Conneaut Area City Schools with us, Lori Riley. Lori, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good,
I don't know if anyone's ever said I was interesting. But.
You're going to be very interesting. Let's put it that way. New, I use the word new to Conneaut, but you're really not new to Ashtabula County. Matter of fact, you were born in Ashtabula County and lived here for about 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, 9.
Take us from there.
Okay, so I'm a native of Ashtabula. My grandparents, great-grandparents were all native to the Ashtabula area. My mom and dad divorced when I was about 7. My mom remarried in 1979 and we moved to Erie. So I spent the first decade of my life here, then the second decade of my life in Erie, where I went to middle school and high school, and then came back to Ohio. So I've been back to Ashtabula County since about 1993.
Mm-hmm. And you came to Conneaut August 1st, of course, as the new superintendent. But prior to that, you spent multiple years at Ashtabula in many capacities of education. Share that with us.
I moved back to the area. It was supposed to be for a year. I was living with my grandparents in their home in Ashtabula until I married my husband, and so I got a job tutoring at Ashtabula High School, Harbor High School at the time, and never left. So I started as a tutor, then I became a special education teacher for 7 years, then I went into administration and was principal of Plymouth Elementary. 1 year I did double duty. I was principal of Plymouth and State Road Elementary. And then in 2009 was promoted to central office. At that point I became director of special education. When the assistant superintendent's job opened up, they promoted me to assistant superintendent but didn't take away the special education job. So I was doing both roles. And the last year I also became the data manager. So I spent my entire 23-year educational career in Ashtabula City until August 1st when I start a new chapter here, which hopefully is only chapter 2 of 2. So
over 2 decades in Ashtabula.
23 years, yes.
Wow,
yes.
That's incredible. A special education teacher, now that's got to be tough.
Mm-hmm. Rewarding. I don't know that it was tough. I started with a degree in social studies education, secondary. We were warned at the time, if you're not a male coach, it's hard for females to get a job in social studies education. And so when I got the tutoring job in Ashtabula City, it was with special education. I loved it, so I went back and got a second degree in that. Mm-hmm. And just found that that's where you impact really the lives of students that need it the most.
I was telling Lori before we came on the air that a nice article on her in the Star Beacon yesterday, and I was going to use it as a guide. And there's a lot of people that don't get the newspaper, so I have a chance to share some of these answers again. You had said in that article about this is the right fit for you. What makes this job the right fit for Lori Riley?
Well, even though I didn't hold the title of superintendent in the previous district, I was the assistant superintendent. So I was coming from a district twice the size. We had about 3,800 students. Here we have about 1,800. 8 buildings instead of the 4 buildings that we have here. So I had some experience working with some superintendent level issues. I believe that the support of the community, the support of the parents, the teaching staff that we have, and the students that are here, I, along with everybody else, can move the district forward. I don't do anything in isolation. I feel very blessed to have the teaching staff and the administrative staff that we have. The outpouring of support from the community is phenomenal. So I believe that this could be someplace where I can make an impact as part of a team, not as an individual.
Mm-hmm. Did you know anything about the Conneaut School District before you took the job?
Well, the day before I took the job, I knew that our treasurer from Ashtabula City was going to be the treasurer. So that was a level of familiarity that I was really considering to be a bonus, because when a treasurer and superintendent already have a relationship, you're that much farther ahead in the game. So I was told the day before from Jackie that she was coming here. I studied central office, and Chris Mucci, who's the curriculum director, and I,
and a good one,
great one,
yes,
very, very much my right hand, we were both young teachers together in Ashtabula and rode to graduate classes together. So I had a background with her.
No, Chris well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sarah Baumgardner in special ed.
Yes.
We had worked together in the county on special ed issues. I value what she does for special education, so there was that level of comfort. And then Betsy Franklin, who's the data coordinator, was our data coordinator in Ashtabula City prior to me taking that over. So I felt very relieved that I was coming in already having an established relationship with the central office, which then allowed me to spend the month of August building relationships with the building principals and the rest of the administrative staff. So that's what I knew about Conneaut. Being from Ashtabula County, I remember coming out here for certain things. I've only been to White Turkey once, but I had been to White Turkey.
Very famous.
I knew that much. Nick Perkowski, who has come back to Corpus Christi, was my daughter's principal at St. John's. As a matter of fact, he and my husband were roommates in Europe this summer. St. John's took a trip over to Europe, and my daughter and husband went. So I knew he was going to be in the Conneaut area, so that would be a familiar community person for me as well. So there were a lot of pluses in the 48 hours I had to make a decision of coming here or not. And the people were a huge draw.
Very good. We're glad to have you here.
It's great.
And you mentioned Nick Perkowski. He was a guest here on Around the Town with Chuck when he was principal at St. John. Now I have to get him back on because he's our
Yes,
religious director of education. You were contacted and had 2 days to decide, according to this article. Did you take the whole 48 hours?
My husband, I am a strong, independent woman, he will tell you that. We very much make our individual career decisions, but he drove me out here Saturday morning when I was hired because I think he thought I was going to turn around and not commit. It was only painful for me because I had spent my entire career someplace and you build a family. So it was leaving the family, but I really felt that this is the place where I was being called to be. So it was only a tough decision because of the people I was leaving behind. I believe I can do good work here, and I want to do good work here for the community and the district and the board. So that part was not ever something to consider. It was just leaving the people and not having time to really tell people. I was interviewed and had met with the board Friday morning and had to go back Friday afternoon to the district to resign. So there was no time to really tell people what was happening.
I was just going to say, because it was late in the summer before these moves took place.
By law, the state of Ohio, or the school boards do not have to let you out of your contract after July 10th. And I was hired July 9th. Okay. So if we would have waited too long, our board at my prior employment could have said, no, we're not letting her go. So that was the rush. To get it all done at that particular time.
Sure. Did you ask for 2 days, or is that what the school board was giving you?
No, they called me Wednesday night, and then I had Thursday to research the district. I interviewed with them Friday morning, and I was hired Saturday morning. And that was all because of that time frame of the first week of July.
Okay. You said in that article, and you said it a little bit here, that you can bring something to Conneaut. What's at the top of your list you'd like to bring to Conneaut?
Well, the report card was just released. It was not good, but it was not good for the whole state of Ohio.
Right.
What's encouraging for Conneaut is that we did receive the letter grade of A for individual student progress. So our students are making progress individually. I believe that through the teamwork that we build with teachers and administration and parents and families, that we can see gains in the other areas.
When we talk about report cards, Lori, for the schools, everybody thinks middle school, high school, but it really starts down there in the primary schools, doesn't it?
Well, the high stakes testing, and it's high stakes because kids will tell you it's important, teachers will tell you it's important. It starts with our third graders. But now there's a snapshot of time that we look at K-3 literacy. So we really are looking at, from the time a student comes into Conneaut as a kindergartner, the gains that they will make from grades K to 12. So it is now an across-the-board K-12 report card.
Like I said, you were born in Ashtabula 46 years ago.
46.
And that gave your age away when you put that in
April
the paper.
Fool's Day.
Oh, my mother's birthday's on April
Really?
Fool's Day.
But now, here's a funny story. My mom was not due with me until May. So nobody would come to the hospital on April 1st because they thought she was playing a joke. But I arrived 4 weeks early. So yes, April Fool's Day, 1970.
Okay, and as I said earlier, you attended St. John, it says here until the third grade, so
Well,
you're about
fourth-
8, 9 years
right.
old?
It was Mount Carmel at the time. My mom was a teacher there. We lived on Columbus Avenue, so that area was my playground. But yes, so I left Fort Erie in 1979.
moved to Erie, graduated from Mercyhurst Prep in 1988.
Yes, who we beat for homecoming the
We
other
did
day.
beat for homecoming, and I think I told you up in the press box who you're going to root for. And
That's
you said
right.
you bleed
I
blue.
bleed blue.
But even if Prep would have won that game, it wouldn't have been bad for you.
No, I had a great education there. I no doubt we were very blessed to have attended there. We are a divided household. There were 5 kids in the family. 2 of the girls went to Villa, which was all girls. 2 of us went to Mercyhurst, which was co-ed, and my stepbrother went to Prep, which was all boys. So there's some allegiance there, and I believe that my training at the very beginning at Mercyhurst had a lot to do with the person that I became, just because of the classes we were offered and the opportunities we had. But we didn't even have football then. There was no football team. There was no homecoming. So I in my heart, 100% was rooting for Conneaut, and I was glad to see them win.
You guys did a great job.
It
on
was a
homecoming
wonderful day.
festivities.
The whole day was just absolutely
Yeah,
wonderful.
you guys are to be commended for such a great job there. Then you went on to Kent State University, main campus, and you didn't really start off in education. You started off in journalism.
I was a journalism major. And I only chose Kent because my parents gave us parameters of where we could attend school, and it had to be a state school within 4 hours. And so that would have been in Pennsylvania. And because I wanted to come back to Ohio, my mom is a graduate of Kent State, and I received a scholarship to waive the out-of-state fee. So I was able to come to Kent as an in-state tuition. I'm back to Ohio, where I always wanted to be. So that opened the door for me to return to Kent. I started as a journalism major. My father was in advertising. He worked for the Star Beacon. So my career choice was very appealing to him. And after the first semester, I called him and I said, I'm going to switch to education. He was not very happy with me. He felt like I was wasting my time and my talents, and felt I was too smart to go into education. Now, my mom was a teacher, so he was kind of saying, you're too good for education. But in my heart, I knew that's where I needed to be. He passed away right before I started really getting into the field. So I always feel like all of this has kind of been bittersweet, because I feel like I've advanced partly because he wanted more for me. And so I went into administration with that feeling that he always wanted me to do something than just teach. But yeah, I was a journalism major. And
Go ahead.
and Kent was known for their journalism department. Taylor Hall, which was one of the main pieces of May 4th and 70. Taylor Hall, the journalism building, was right where all of that had happened. And I'm also a big history buff and pop culture person, so journalism at Kent just seemed to be the right thing I wanted to do until after a semester, and then switched to education.
How about today? Does journalism still interest you?
Not so much. I have a 15-year-old daughter who it interests because of all the blogs. So she's thinking if she doesn't get into musical theater, that journalism is something that she would want to do, but online. Everything's changed. I mean, you work for a newspaper, it's a dying kind of an art, and the online is what's really where it's at now.
You may have mentioned this earlier, but probably went through me. You were a principal at Plymouth for 7 years?
Yes.
And Plymouth is south of...
It's south of 84. It's still in Ashtabula. It was Plymouth at one time was a separate school district, and then became part of the Ashtabula Area City Schools. Seven Hills Road on Route 11 is where I would get off to go to work there. It is now just a field. The school is no longer there. But it was just a very small rural community that was part of the Ashtabula Area City Schools district-wide.
Now, you really enjoyed teaching, but you said in that article that you really wanted to get into administration. Did you know that from the start?
It was funny, my mom found a biography that we had it was a 4th grade project, and she had all of our biographies, and in it I had said that I wanted to be a teacher or a principal. So apparently way back in 1980, that was something that was on my mind. I enjoyed being in the office, interacting with other staff, interacting with students. When you teach special ed, you have a very small class. So I only really interacted with 16 students a year. So when I would go down to the office to help, I would get to see more of the kids, and I felt like I could help lead the staff to make some gains. So that's what made me go into building principal. Never thought I'd get to the superintendent's level.
Does being a principal help becoming a superintendent?
Yes, because you have to make tough decisions with adults when you're a principal. With teaching, you have to make tough decisions with kids. But you have to be able to make hard decisions with adults, whether it be parents or staff, and you have to know that you have that ability to make the tough decisions or have the hard conversations. So I definitely feel that I said up until I arrived at Conneaut, the 7 years at Plymouth were the best years of my career. I think these years at Conneaut are going to change my mind, but I really, really enjoyed the 7 years I spent at Plymouth.
Mm-hmm. Talking with Lori Riley, new superintendent of Conneaut Area City Schools here on Around the Town with Chuck. Lori, you were encouraged to apply for a superintendent role by some Ashtabula school officials. It wasn't your original, it wasn't you yourself who wanted to. They gave you the courage?
Well,
was it courage? Is that the right word to use?
You know, it's like you get the call from the bullpen. I loved,
we're going to get into that too.
I loved what I was doing at Plymouth. And at the time, Mr. Joseph Donatone was our superintendent and wanted me to come to central office. And I really didn't want to give up what I was doing. I loved the building work. So for 1 year, I did both. I did central office work and building principal work. And then in year 2, he wanted me up in the central office full time. So the move to central office was not really voluntary. It was, it's your time, you need to come. And so at that point, he and Bud Hill, who was our treasurer, encouraged me to go back to school and get my superintendent's license because they felt that at some point there would be the right time for me to take a job in that field. So it was never something on my radar until they had mentioned that they thought it would be a good fit for me.
You started on the job August 1st.
Yes.
And you got right into the community right away, especially at the football game. I noticed you worked in the ticket booth, the parking lot. Why? Let me ask you why you did that right away.
Well, first of all, the community in general, I believe a superintendent has to be visible in the community, not just in the school system. We rely on the community for a number of things, and it's important for them to know that the superintendent is vested, especially when you don't live in the community. The more time I can spend with the community, to me, is very valuable. And so that's why I want to be seen in the community. I'm not just coming here for 8 hours and leaving. The part with the football game, I am not one to just sit and idle. So they needed help selling parking spots. I picked up a sign and started. There was a long line at the ticket booth. I hopped in and helped sell some tickets till we could get the line through. And then the concession stand was incredibly busy that night. That's just who I am. I need to be busy. I'm not one to just sit idly by and do nothing. So it wasn't for anything other than people needed help, and that's I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and help.
You do a very good job. I almost needed to spot her Friday night. If that ever happens again, I'm going to remember Lori Riley.
I'll be there on this Friday. We have another home game.
Yes, we do, against Titusville.
Yes.
How much conversation do you see yourself having with the other county superintendents?
We meet twice a month.
Oh, you do?
Yes, we have twice a month we meet as county superintendents.
Certain location?
At the ESC, at the Ashtabula County ESC, unless there's other reasons why we need to go somewhere else. I have a very great relationship with John Rubisich, who's the county superintendent. He was also another one that encouraged me when different positions opened up to apply, but my heart wasn't in it at the time to leave Ashtabula. But what's nice about having been the assistant in Ashtabula County is, other than the new superintendent from Ashtabula City, I know everybody, all of the other superintendents already. So there's also that level of comfort of knowing the other people from the county. They've been all reaching their hands out to help whatever they could do to make sure I'm adjusting well. Plus, you know, I'm out here in Conneaut. Pat Calusi and Buckeye, Mike Candela in Peavey, and J.C. Montanaro in Jefferson are all products of the Ashtabula administrative team. So you have now 4 Ashtabula City administrators in superintendent roles in the county. That's half of them. So there's great networking that goes on, especially with the county report, or with the report card being sent out. We made a collective statement as county superintendents because we all feel very strongly that it's a single measure, and we don't want any one district to be judged harshly on the report card. So we made a united statement as county superintendents. So we have a great relationship. Yes.
So when you all meet, do you guys share ideas of what you're doing at your building? Is it anything to do with that?
Yeah, we'll share about what's going on at the district, what needs to be on our radars as superintendents, so that we're all making the right decisions, or making sure we all meet the same deadlines. But it's sharing about what works and what doesn't work, and what works for one district might not work for another. But it's a good collaborative process, so you're not doing anything in isolation, that you have other superintendents that you can lean on, especially coming from this county. You know, we all understand what it means to be a superintendent in Ashtabula County, so we all can support each other in that way.
Very good. Some of your biggest challenges, of course, is the state report card. Let me ask you about another thing that was discussed. I asked Michael Notar this too when he was here. A few years back, there was some talk about having all-year school. Do you favor that?
In some respects, if the buildings are conditioned for all-year school, it was very warm a few weeks ago. We're fortunate that we have air conditioning in our buildings, but you have to have the right buildings and climate for those buildings. I do feel that we lose a lot over the summer, but we live in an area where tourism is very important too. So you have to weigh the benefits. You know, the old system was set up for farming so that the kids were available to do the farming in the summertime. Because of high stakes testing, we need students to be in class. That's why we start earlier in August, because once the tests are given in May, we're done. You know, the students are burned out, the teachers are burned out. It has to be the right setup. Not all year, but maybe more into June and earlier into August, and having July off and having more time at the holidays off so families can kind of plan vacations. I do believe there's a need to keep students in school longer because of the high stakes testing that we have.
How much do the high school sports schedules play in the start of school early in the year? Like say high school football, because it starts in August.
I don't know that has as much to do with it, as long as you have your practices. What has a lot to do with the start is because of testing. What sports play an impact in is the start of the student day. Research will tell you that high school students should be the last ones going to school in the morning because they need the most sleep. But when you're leaving to attend sporting events out of town, luckily we don't have to travel all the way down Route 11, but we do have to travel to Oil City. You know, we have quite a bit of distance where our teams have to travel. So then you weigh, if you start earlier, you're getting kids out of school to attend sporting events, so they're missing classes. So I always thought athletics have more to do with the start time of school versus the calendar of school.
Now, for the first time that I can remember in a long, long time, I went to Catholic schools, but from what I can remember, schools getting out before Memorial Day this year. I don't think that's ever happened. If it has, it's been years ago.
No, and that's the earlier start. Everyone in the county is not aligned with their calendars. If you follow the news, you know that Geneva started as late as possible to help Geneva on the Lake tourism. I was the person that did the calendars for Ashtabula City, so we have a very similar start and end time over there too. It's the new state mandates. Now we are required to go hours. We don't count days, we count hours. So if you go longer, have a longer school day, then you don't have to go as many days. So that's I think part of the reason why Conneaut's calendar is set up as it is.
Prior to you coming here, we had administrative shuffle, I guess I would call it. The principals moving around from building to building. How's that working out?
It's working out very well. As a new superintendent, we've been able to form a team. Everyone was kind of new to their positions. Nobody's a new administrator, but everyone's new to their positions. So we were all in it together, and we were just going to move forward. It's great having Dr. Tim Neal back at the high school. He's a graduate of Conneaut, and he and I worked for 7 years together in Ashtabula City.
Also a guest on Around the Town with
yeah. So he and I worked very well together in Ashtabula City. So we have a good working relationship here. And then each building principal, we've all been kind of feeling the waters, testing the waters together, and it's kind of gelled us as an administrative team. So it's been nice.
Another big challenge I think you have, Lori, it starts in November and it goes to about April. You know what I'm going to say, right?
Snow
when
days.
to call out that school.
Yes.
What are some of the things you look at when it when it comes to an inclement weather day?
Well, number one, it's the safety of students. It's never about adults getting to work. It's about our students being safe. I was part of the team for Ashtabula City when we would call around in the morning. You talk to other superintendents, you talk to your roads department, you talk to your own district maintenance department. Can the students arrive safely? Can we get them home safely? And will the weather and the roads be able to be maintained throughout the day? That's what it's about. Cold factor, you take into effect if you have students walking, which we do here. You have to consider that. It's always about the safety and comfort of the students.
Mm-hmm. Do you like the 2-hour delay?
As an administrator, as an administrator, I do. As a working mom, I don't.
Okay, explain the reasons for both.
Well, because you lose, if you can get them here, and in Northeast Ohio, rarely does the weather hold off that you have a bad first couple hours and you can get everybody in later. You're not losing a whole day of instruction. So it doesn't count against you. Now that we're looking at hours, it would just be a 2-hour mark against you instead of a 6.5 or 7 hours. As a working mom, my daughter is not driving to school yet, so how would I get to work on time, get her there? So I think for our working parents, it's difficult to juggle. And you really have to have a good backup plan in order to do that. I think you see attendance. One of the things we're judged on is attendance. I think attendance drops on 2-hour delays simply because parents can't get their students here. And so then you're thinking, well, am I having school to save time? But then if nobody's here, what can we really accomplish in that day? So it has to really be a good reason.
I was going to say, you really don't use it that much.
No.
Now, in Pennsylvania, they do.
They're very strict. We hardly ever had snow days in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. What's the thinking there that they'd rather go with the 2-hour delay?
I don't know, because as a kid, we really rarely had snow days. But they just feel that they open schools and who can get there gets there.
Mm-hmm. Parent-teacher conferences, a couple more things I want to discuss with you before we close. Parent-teacher conferences, are they still twice a year?
They're twice a year. We had to change it. In the calendar, it was originally scheduled for election night, so we moved it up. So I believe it's November 1st and November 10th.
A Thursday night, Friday morning kind of thing?
Tuesday morning, Tuesday evening, Thursday evening.
Okay, so that's changed. Oh, 2 evenings, no daytime.
No daytime.
Okay.
And then they'll be held again in the spring.
Why did we do away with the daytime conferences?
I don't know, this is the calendar I was given.
Oh, okay.
So the calendar was set, but we did look at election night and really thought that was not the right night to have parent-teacher conferences. We want to encourage parents to go out and vote. We had stopped doing daytime conferences as well, because then again it takes away from instruction. It's another day off for kids, and we like them in the classroom. So that's why we stopped in Ashtabula City, which I'm assuming is probably why they did that here.
When you have the parent-teacher conferences as a superintendent, now will you try to go to all the buildings during those conferences?
I'll try to be as visible as I can be. Yes. We encourage parents to go and meet with their students, teachers. It's incredibly important that you have that communication. So I tend to try to be as visible as possible. When I'm done here, I'm going to the middle school soccer game to catch, I'm trying to hit at least 2 sports or 2 games per sport so I can get to know the kids and the coaches. And so it's just who I am. So yeah, I won't be in my office. Although it's nice because where my office is, I'm immediate access to the middle school and across the street from Gateway. So I may spend one evening in those 2 sections, and then Lakeshore and the high school another night.
All right, Cindy, she brought sports up. Big time Cleveland Indians fan.
I am.
Well, you know that's my number one thing.
I die hard. My dad was born in '48, and my mom both, which is the last year they really won anything big, right? So
25 different stadiums
Yes.
you've been in.
Wow. For part of our honeymoon, we went to the Cooperstown. My husband and I went to the Baseball Hall of Fame, and we both enjoy baseball. So it was something that we had started when we were first married and couldn't afford a big vacation. We went to some local stadiums, something that we could just drive to overnight. And then when it started to become a regular part of our summer vacations, we tried to hit all the stadiums that were closing. So I've been to Montreal when the Expos were still playing. We went to the old Minneapolis and Milwaukee stadiums.
Oh my gosh.
And so when our daughter was born and we started taking her with us, the other important thing was that we expose her to the cities where they are. So we went to Chicago and saw 2 games and exposed her to some of the museums in Chicago. We saw a couple games in New York, and she has been to New York. Atlanta, her favorite baseball trip was in Atlanta because someone jumped the fence and ran around on the field in a wedding dress. Now that's not something you would see at any typical.
No.
So that has stuck with her. But yeah, so we've been to 25, and our goal this spring break is to hit 3 games out in California.
Oh.
Because baseball starts. Easter is later, so we'll be able to hit a
Right.
Dodgers and Angels and a Padres game while we're there.
Do you have a favorite Indians player on the current
Well,
team?
not current because I haven't, but Jim Thome, I know he left, but he will always be my favorite. He has always been my favorite baseball player for the Indians. So
Do you think they can go far in the playoffs if they get there, and hopefully they're going to get there?
I'm hoping. We have tickets on Sunday. I haven't made it to a game yet this year, so we're going to on Sunday to. It's actually called Catholic Family Day. So they have mass right at the stadium, and then you can stay and watch the game. And Our Lady of Peace's youth group is going. So that's always something my husband and I are willing to chaperone. Is the trip to the Indians game.
Also Fan Appreciation Day. I
Yes,
believe.
yes. I hope we get something good.
And you're a Cavaliers fan as well?
I am. Sadly, my husband and daughter were in Europe when they won, so I was sitting on my bedroom floor watching the game all by myself that evening when they won, and they had missed, but I had taped it for them, but they had missed the celebration. But yes, a huge Cavs fan.
Now, before we came on the air, I don't know if I heard this correctly or not, but did you say that you were a Steelers fan?
I am by marriage.
Cindy loves it.
My husband grew up in Manaway, Ohio, which is the home of Jack Lambert, and Lambert Stadium was
What a
named
player he
after him.
was.
He was a Kent
Oh.
State grad too. So, as a little boy in the '70s, the Steelers were winning.
Still are.
Still are. And Jack Lambert, so he just had a love for the Steelers. He grew up as a Lutheran Steeler fan. I grew up as a Catholic Browns fan, and so as part of our wedding vows, we're raising our daughter as a Catholic Steeler fan. So and he's converted to Catholicism, and I've converted to a Steelers fan. So we
Well,
root for the Steelers.
I guess
I still, my heart is still with the Browns, but on Sundays we watch the Steelers.
So what happens when the Browns and the Steelers play? If your heart is still with the Browns?
Well, to keep peace in the family. Outwardly, I'm rooting for the Steelers, but still, my father, who's no longer with us, was a huge sports fan, and if he knew I was rooting for the Steelers, I had to make up for the Steelers by going
right.
into administration and
Right.
going on,
Right.
to better my life. So yeah, no, my husband just loves the Steelers, so that's who we root for.
Well, Lori, this has been fun.
Thanks.
I'm glad to meet
Thanks
you
for
and
having
have
me.
a chance to talk to you, and we'll get you on
If you
again.
ever need help in the booth, let me know.
I'm going to remember that, and we'll get you on again later in
Okay.
the year.
Okay.
See how things are going, maybe around January sometime when you have to come in with your snow boots.
Okay.
Lori Riley, new superintendent of Conneaut Area City Schools, my guest on Around the Town with Chuck. Next week we'll have the editor of the Star Beacon Sports, Mike Draco, on the show. So this is Chuck Guglielmo. Have a good week, everybody.